All right, everybody. Thanks so much for stopping by another live episode of Real Estate Titans. I'm your host, Greg Fowler, traveling throughout the marketplace, interviewing the top real estate professionals in our field, essentially gathering insight, inspiration, really drives and motivates these top producers above and beyond everybody else in what I'd like to consider a real estate titan. Our very special guest and feature titan today, Colton Lindsay. Colton, thanks so much for taking the time, man. It's an honor to have you on the show.
What's up, my man? Thank you for having me here. I'm stoked.
For sure. And all the way from Ogden, Utah, correct?
All the way here from Ogden, Utah. Where are you at? I'm not even sure where
Colorado.
you're at.
Yeah, we're not too far away.
Oh, that's not even too far at all, man.
You know,
that's
a few mountain states, you know, the skiing and snowboarding is good in both locations. You know, there's no complaints. That's cool, man. But yeah, I'm super excited to have you on, Colton, and just an absolute honor. I can't wait to really just share your story and your background and really tools and tactics have you grown and scaled your business and shared it with so many others. So if you're ready to roll, man, I just want to dive into
the dude, let's rock into it. I'm trying to just share this, but I'm kind of halfway not figuring it out. All right, here we go. Yeah, let's do it. Let's make it happen.
Love it, man. So I guess let's just start with telling everybody a little bit about yourself.
Listen, so I'm Colton Lindsay, obviously from Ogden, Utah. Been in business now. I was thinking about this the other day. It's crazy. I started in 2005 in the real estate industry. Here we are, 2019. I'm going on 15 years here in 2020. So been around for a minute. Failed the first couple of years, definitely the first 10 months I failed in real estate. I sold 2 houses. One was to my sister, so that had to happen, right?
Right.
And then the other one was like, if you remember, it was 2006 at the time. Housing market was crazy here. New construction was wild. This was before the crash, and I just got a walk in and sent them over to a new construction site and got that deal under contract without doing anything. So those were my 2 deals. And then I realized I didn't know what the freak I was doing, man. And that's when I started with a guy named Bob Leffler, a company called Fearless Agent. And that's where I learned to prospect and generate leads. Went on to 20 deals a year, 30, 40, clipped to my peak by a single agent, 75 deals a year.
Wow.
And to where we're at today, where I got my sales team. I don't actively sell today. My sales team do somewhere around, depending on the year, 65 to 80 deals a year. Plus I got my brokerage that sells about 150, 145, 150 homes a year as well with our brokerage.
Wow.
And then the WGR Academy, right? Like the education side of things, we help people grow their business in 3 areas. One, it's naturally scale the business through leverage, okay? Becoming an owner, not an operator, Greg. And I think that's really important because there's a lot of people talking about, oh, you need to do all the deals yourself. Like, no, we get into real estate for time and money, not to become a slave to our business, working 8 days a week, 27 hours a day, right?
Well said.
So that's step 1, grow, scale the business and leverage yourself. Step 2 is to create financial freedom. And this is my personal belief, is that we've never been taught that as real estate. We hear about passive income. I think passive income is a little bit of a hoax. I don't think it's real, but I think leveraged residual income is real. And if you manage your cash flow the right way, you can create that. And if you create tax-free wealth, no one's talking about this in our industry today, at least on a high level.
Right.
And then the third, which I'm most stoked about, Greg, is be addicted to life. Wake up every single morning to make a difference and to be fulfilled from the core. So I had some learning curves along the way over that 15 years, but that's it in a nutshell.
Well, and obviously that leads into so many different things that we're going to dive into here shortly, but obviously already packed with a ton of info. I want to back up just a little bit at the very beginning, Colton, because, 15 years is a chunk of time, obviously knocking on 2020's door. So I want to look at it this way, is thought process. Why real estate in the first place? What got you into the business? I mean, and then obviously to where you are to today.
Yeah. I'm blessed. To get into real estate. My mom, she worked as a secretary for a real estate company for 42 years.
Okay.
So when I was a kid, I'd show up at the real estate office and I would see people. I remember this one guy drove a red Hummer. And I was like, dude, I want a Hummer. I don't know why. Hummers are ugly, right? But to me, it was like an expensive car. I didn't grow up rich. I grew up middle class. My dad worked at the gas company for 40 years. My mom was a secretary. In fact, I earn in a year now what it took my mom 15 years to earn, that's just incredible. So I was
unreal.
I was blessed with parents that put me in that space. It was kind of like the outlier situation. I was in the right time at the right place, and I got around that environment. So the 8th grade, I did a job shadow on that guy that had the red Hummer. So I learned a little bit about real estate, or at least I thought I learned a little bit. I had no clue, truly.
Okay.
Then I became a senior in high school, and I got to do a senior project on the career I want to go into. I was like, I'm going to be a realtor, dude. So I did my senior project on being a realtor, and then I went on a mission when I was 19 for the Mormon Church, came home, got my license, and just went straight into business. So I just grew up around the idea of it because of my mom being a secretary.
Unbelievable. And I think that's what's really interesting to me is so many different professionals from so many different walks of life get into this business and they have wild success with so many different principles and massive amounts of action and consistency as you have and continue to do. But I always like to ask that particular question into it. So when it comes down to WGR, I want to give the audience a little bit more information about that because there's different levels or tiers. If you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about why that started and then kind of what those two tiers are. And
you know what WGR came from originally? I when I was actively selling my real estate myself, I did a lot of for sale by owners in the early days. And I would call for sale by owners and say, hey, this is Colton Lindsay, the world's greatest realtor. And then it started sticking around the community, right? Like other realtors were getting pissed off because like they heard my name out and about. And so I was like, I'm going to go get the website. So I got the worldsgreatestrealtor.com. And then as I started growing, people started complaining. I didn't realize it was actually a code of ethics violation. Okay.
I wouldn't have known that.
You can't use the word realtor because it's trademarked in a general form. So like the idea, the world's greatest realtor is generalized. Okay. You can't say your neighborhood realtor. You can't say something like that. You can say your name in realtor. So I got a cease and desist order from the National Association of Realtor.
Wow.
I was like, well, shoot, what am I going to do? So I heard, and I actually was going to change it to the WGR.com. And it was someone owns it, some weirdo lady in Illinois or something, and she doesn't even use it. Try to sell it to me for like $1,000. I'm like, okay, I'll be the WGR. I'll be the -WGR.com. That was my new website.
Okay.
And I just threw up some crappy logo at the time, and my marketing was on point, but my branding was ugly. My logo was ugly, right? So I threw a thing out there on Facebook, and one of my past clients, who's been an amazing client of mine, she does graphic design, and she's like, hey, let me create something new for you. And she created the whole new look for the WGR a few years ago. And so yeah, that's where the brand came from. I believe it's we're in an attraction-based marketing business. Anyone thinks we're salespeople, that is important to be aware of, but we're really in the marketing business, and you're building a personal brand. And so what I've learned is you got to have a tribe, a network. Who are you delivering the message to? Okay. Second thing is deliver the message. What's the message? And so we look at the WGR brand and it's making a difference. I had a great friend of mine pass away in 2016 that made me really consider some things about before I pass away. And before I die, man, I just want to make a difference for people. So that's the message we deliver to our tribe. Our tribe is our real estate clients. It's people on social media. It's people in our academy. Like right now, I'm delivering a message and inviting more people into the tribe, right?
Right.
And then the third thing is, how are we going to deliver that message and do it repetitively? And which is so easy in today's world with the digital world. And so what I did is, because of how I'd set things up, it started flowing that realtors across North America were reaching out to me, thinking it was going to help my real estate sales business grow. That was my original intention, to grow the real estate business. And then I was like, well, these guys, they need to help make more money, which everyone wants. But the part that I really tapped into is I started finding these people making a lot of money, but they weren't fulfilled, Greg. They weren't happy. They were actually quite miserable, which that was a space I went through for a long time with a lot of drugs and alcohol. And so that's what I've tapped into. So the two different tiers, well, there's a free one, obviously the Academy is free, but then it's the WGR Alliance. This is for realtors doing less than 20 deals a year, and which is, you know these numbers, 87 to 90% of realtors are going to get into the business, fail out in 1 to 2 years. It's just the statistics. They're going to be out. And those that do actually make it through that, they're going to peak between 20 to 30 deals a year. They're going to make maybe 150K at best. And so I figured out, okay, can I help people get to that point, get through the survival rate? And that's the Alliance. Okay. It's a 1-year program. It's $1,000. It's super inexpensive, but it's to get you to that 6 figures, 20 deals a year mark. Okay. And then there's what I call a level 3 agent. This is where the mastermind starts. You're doing at least 20 to 40 deals a year to get started, 150, 250,000 revenue. But I'm going to teach you how to cash flow manage, because I want you to create financial freedom. I want your residual income, your leverage residual income, to pay for your lifestyle. And then from there, there's level 4 and 5, which is, you are the owner of the business. So for example, I look at my business. I sold 5 homes in the last 12 months out of 150 transactions. Wow. You see me? So when we look at it that way, it's how do you get to that point? Doesn't mean I sit on my ass all the time.
No.
But how do you get to that point? And there's certain steps. And not only that, I only work 3.5, maybe 4 days a week. I'm a single dad. I got my kids every Thursday to Monday. So I leverage myself a bit with my assistant there. But for the most part, I'm not I'm not the hustle and grind. I work 6 hours, 7 hours on a work day when I do work, and it's 3.5, 4 hours a day or 4 days a week. But how do you get to that point?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what we really go over in the mastermind. And then I realized too, we're living in a world where I'm not the smartest guy out there. This is the reality.
Sure.
And so there's no one that's that smart guy. So the mastermind concept is what if you could get with one of our mastermind partners, Shauna Overman. She's 31.
Okay.
She'll do 150 deals this year with her team and her brokerage. And, but she did that within 3 years. She went from 40 deals a year to 150 deals a year, from 100K a year to 700K, 657K, 700 a year. What if you could get information from her as well? What if you could learn from her as well?
Mm-hmm.
Follow me here.
Yeah.
Or Al Torrey, one of our other awesome mastermind partners. He's out of Boca Raton, Florida. He literally, when he joined my mastermind in 2016, he was a pharmacist. So he wasn't selling real estate.
Right.
He had $700 in his bank account. He's a wife. He's got 3 kids. And he goes on to make $260,000 in his first 12 months. Now he's a level 4 agent doing $500,000 a year. His wife's in the business now. They have agents to work. Like, how do you do that in such a short amount of time? And so that's the purpose of the mastermind, is to get around those people that are playing at that level. Like another mastermind partner, Madhu, she's out of Canada. She's the number 1, check this out, number 1 selling agent in EXP in Canada.
That's huge.
And then she's the number 3 selling agent in all of North America in EXP. EXP's got like 25,000 agents now.
Oh, yeah.
So those are the type of people that you get to learn from when you get into the concept of the mastermind. So hopefully that answers your question in a nutshell.
Yeah, it does. And again, just giving the audience a little bit of information into that. And so where's the best place to I guess, to find it? And you kind of already mentioned the website, but just so we have it in there again, I'll put it in the links. But where can everybody, top producers?
So the best, go check me out on Instagram. There's a link for the mastermind application there. Plus, we actually have a swipe up going on there like almost every day to learn about the Alliance.
Love it.
But that's the best place, the WGR on Instagram. Or you can you can find out about the mastermind application, www.thewgrmastermind.com.
Okay, perfect.
But we're really clear, like you've got to be that level 3 agent to be a part of the mastermind. Like it doesn't make sense to put a brand new agent into that program because you're not there yet psychologically. So
sure. And I think that's intelligent for that scope to really take your steps and the time to learn what you need to learn so that you can handle that workload as it grows and grows and grows. And it's not just the tactical application, but the mindset portion. I mean, your life changes, your mind changes, the way that you look at your time and your value with the people you're spending it with and the actions that you're taking. I mean, to me, that's brilliant. So I can't wait, Colton, just to throw those links in it. Hopefully everybody out there, takes a look at this and really reaches out to Colton. And I'll put links down below, Instagram, website.
Well, and here's what's important about, like, we just did an event. I have 3 major events a year. The one I just did recently from the mastermind partners in Boca Raton, Florida.
Okay.
But it's not traditional. Like, truthfully, at that event, when you get to that point, Greg, where you're making at least $150,000, $250,000 a year, to scale your business, it's no longer about strategy and techniques and tools, right? Like, it's skill set is 10 to 15% of it. The mechanic side, the rest of it is psychological and emotional. And so if you can learn to raise your emotional state to that space of enthusiasm, excitement, certainty, and peace. How many realtors or people in general today don't experience peace? Like, I bet you have people listening to this show right now, they go to bed at night and their wheels are still turning in their head. They can't fucking sleep because they're thinking about, did I get this done? Did I return that? How do I do that? And they're stressed. They can't even sit at the dinner table without thinking about the stuff they need. You see it all the time. Like, I was at my daughter's field trip here a couple months ago. It's the middle of the day, and I know whose realtors are not in my community. There's just one realtor there the whole fucking time. He's on his phone. And I'm just thinking, that sucks.
Yeah.
Like, how do we help people get out of that space? The other thing I've ran into a lot is I've been really open about, my use with drugs and alcohol over the years. Sure. Which is triggered people. I get people all the time reaching out to me, dude, listen, I am 3 to 5 Oxycontins a day right now. Dude, like, I've been drinking this much vodka every day for the last 47 days, right? Like, so many people that we've helped get into that process to cure that problem that they're dealing with. But what I found out is everyone has it at a baseline. If you're not addicted to drugs or alcohol, you're addicted to something. Is it your social media? Is it your spending? Is it your food? Is it your narcissism? What is it? And you can cure that through mindfulness. Truthfully, is what it is mindfulness, breath work, different activities like that.
I mean, this is hugely applicable and going into it, and then we'll keep going into that form when it comes to the advisory portion because we're already diving deep into this, Colton. This is super awesome. So I want to ask the next question because this gives everybody a little bit deeper window into you as a man, as a professional. And this question I know gets thrown around quite a bit, but this is really crucial for this particular series. Is what's your why? I mean, what motivates you? What drives you every day? What gets you out of bed to do what you do, Colton, to the level that you do it at?
Truthfully, I think why is a fucking bullshit. I
Okay.
do it because I can. Like I wake up, I'm gonna die one day. What am I gonna do with my life? You know, a lot of people use their kids as their why. I think it's bullshit. You don't do it for your kids. You do it for yourself because you fucking can. Yeah, you know, the old analogy is you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make a horse drink. You just make the horse fucking thirsty. The horse will start to drink. You're the horse. Get thirsty for it. How do you build that burning desire, that drive inside of you? You tell yourself that. You use your reticular activating system to do that. To me, at the end of the day, like, can I make a difference? Yes. Am I going to choose that? Absolutely. But I do it because I fucking can.
Wow. I love that answer all the way through and through. And no offense to anybody who, if their kids are their why, their family, or I mean, there's so many different, right? But you're straight to the point, and I think that makes sense. I mean, you have the capability and the ability to do so. So why aren't you doing that? And to me, if you go a step further into that, you'd be doing a disservice not just to yourself, but to everybody who's around you by not trying, because you have the ability to do so. And without you even really going into it that way, everything that you're doing because you can and you can succeed to that higher level, you are affecting your kids. You are affecting your community. You are affecting your family. You know what I mean?
100%. And when you got to understand, like, I have the stewardship of being the person that teaches my children behaviors. And I clearly want to teach them behaviors, but they're on their own journey. It's them that's going to choose. Like, there's so many people that have taught their kids great behaviors and they turned out to be fuck ups. But there's a lot of people that have grown up in the fucking ghetto and they turn out to be amazing.
Right.
All you can do is guide your journey, and you can love and support the people that are come along your journey along the way. You know, you follow me here? You ever seen that movie Signs with Mel Gibson? You remember that old movie Signs? Right. That's how life is, in the sense that it gets clear to the point to the end where that alien is inside of that room, and he has the flashback of his wife squished up into the tree in the car, and she says, "Swing away." And then all of a sudden, you know, the brother's got the fucking bat right there and the cups of water everywhere, and it all clicks and all these things line up. I mean, we're here by design. We live in on a planet. We're floating here in the middle of outer space, Greg, close enough to the sun. We're not freezing, but far enough away we're not melting. And as far as I know, the planets around us don't have any life form. As far as I know, I don't even know if they exist. I'm just being told that by other people.
Sure, right? Yeah.
And at one point, we're like, it's estimated 7.5 billion people today. Gary Vaynerchuk's thrown out the number that a 1 in 400 trillion chance that your sperm is the winner. Dude, you're a walking fucking miracle.
Yeah, well said.
When we can look at it as a wonder and an awe and an amazement, we're really not in fucking control of anything. It's like we're in a fucking roller coaster ride. Keep your arms and legs in and enjoy the fucking ride.
Yeah.
Enjoy it.
I'd love that all the way through and through. And you're so right about the lack of control. And there's so many people that are controlling or control freaks, or however you want to call it, or perfection is that illusion sort of scenario. And I agree with that. I think the few things, if any, that we have control over, in my humble opinion, correct me if I'm wrong or disagree, but it's not so much what's happening all around us, but the decisions that we're making, right? So if I decide to take action, if I decide to put my time or effort into something, I'm making that happen directly.
Yeah.
Now, what happens after my decision to take that action, I don't have control over. Whether it works, whether it doesn't, whether it's successful or fails. I think that, which is the majority of our lives, but the few things that we can control, you got to do it. And the top producers all over, they really, really do.
I think there's one major thing that I can control, and that's my awareness. Because when I'm aware, like the other day, I don't know if you've ever heard of a guy named Brian Cassell. He's a great freaking friend of mine.
Yeah,
like, you should interview him if you haven't interviewed him
on the podcast. We had Brian on the show. Yeah, out of LA, right?
Yeah. So he's a great friend of mine, and he put a post on his social media the other day, and it was about creating thoughts. And I just disagreed with him with the fact that we don't create our thoughts. They're not our thoughts. The only thing that I am is the ability to be aware of those thoughts. Like, if there's a thought and I'm aware of the thought, how the fuck am I the thought if I'm aware of the thought? You follow me here?
That's a good point.
I'm not the thought. I get to be aware of thoughts, and then all of a sudden I get to hone in that attention on that thought, And where I hone in my attention, the energy flows. And that's where trust comes. That's where faith in a higher power, a God, a source energy comes. Because all of a sudden, if I put my energy on that, something's going to manifest. Because if all of a sudden I focus on a bunch of negative thoughts, guess what? That shit's going to show up in my life everywhere. If I focus on the positive or something that grows or something that like, even if I focus on like getting on more podcasts, for example, if I put, that's the thought that comes up, I focus on it, ideas are going to come to me. And if I act on those ideas, all of a sudden people like you are reaching out to me. That's why I'm on more podcasts today.
Sure.
You reached out to me though, right?
Yeah, correct.
And that naturally started to happen. I had to trust in the process. That's just a simple example. That's how our entire life is ran. If we can just be aware of the thoughts.
Oh, I love this, Colton. This is huge information already. We're only into 2 questions already, but I want to get into the next one because I think this is actually a crowd pleaser for all the audience who's watching or listening to this right now. They want to learn from the Titans. They want to understand how they've grown and scaled their business. So the question is, Colton, if you could look back at your career thus far and pick or choose 1 or 2 things that you added to your business or changed that took it from one level to the next, where did you see that? What does that look like for you?
Yeah. So I think if we look at that kind of level 1, level 2 agent doing less than 20 deals a year, for me, it was, you know what, you really do need to focus on the mechanical side of it, the skill set side, the strategy. You need to know, how do you talk with people? How do you identify an actual lead? How do you take that lead to an appointment? How do you take that appointment to a signed contract, that signed contract to an under contract and to a paycheck? Because truthfully, if you're making less than $100,000 today, you're fucking broke. Like you can't live a very good life. You can live a poor life or below average life at $100,000 a year. And so you need cash flow coming into your business. So if for me, I would do this. I would be obsessed at that stage, just setting appointments. How do I get meetings with people? That's number 1. Number 2 is, how do I become an expert at sales and communication? How do I just become so great? And I would dedicate, you know what, the thought pops up, become great at sales and communication. I need to focus time and space where that's my focus. That's on my radar, whether it's watching a sales presentation, go to a sales training, investing in a sales coach. I need to get great at sales. And then the third is I would more consciously focus on expanding my network, people that I know, and just building amazing relationships. And then when I get to that point, which I've been really blessed with, because this is the part I did do right, is I leveraged myself the right way. Step 1 was through cash flow management. Step 2 was tax-free wealth. I made sure that I'm paying as little as possible to the government because their spending habit is horrible, and that I'm controlling where the money is spent. And then through that, what happens is all of a sudden I can start to create leveraged residual income. Meaning, listen, I need to pay attention to it, but at the same time, I've got the machine working that as long, it's like, imagine if you have not a Ferris wheel, like a merry-go-round. You know the merry-go-round at the park?
Yeah.
Okay, if you get like 50 people on that merry-go-round and you try to push that motherfucker, it's going to be a bit heavy, right? But if you get all 50 of you off the side of that merry-go-round and you get that thing going, and then all of a sudden they hop on the merry-go-round and that thing's flying, all you got to do is tap it once in a while. Boom, boom, and it keeps the wheel going. That's what you got to do with how cash flow works.
Love it.
And that, the greatest asset, it's like we talked about before the show started. I'm hiring a 17-year-old kid in high school. The greatest asset you can invest in are human resources. People that will believe in the vision and that they'll create the vision inside of the vision, and they take ownership of it. So that's the part that I did great at. And then the third part is I learned this slowly, but was to actually slow down to move faster.
Interesting.
Meaning, first hour to 2 hours of my day, I'm in breath work, I'm cold plunging, I'm in meditation, I'm in journal writing mode. Like tonight, I'll be finishing my day with an hour and a half of yin yoga, which is a very slow paced yoga, which is amazing, right? And then the fourth thing is, I wished I would have surrounded myself with people like you, higher level people sooner, right? And invested more into masterminds and programs quicker. Because like now, who I get to network with is freaking crazy. Like one of my best friends is Brian Kinsella. I just had a good friend of mine, Joshua Smith, speak at my event in Dallas. I've got to become good friends with Danny Morell, whose company does $40 million a year, right? I really became a new friend, amazing guy named Luke Wren. And if you don't know Luke Wren, you should get to know him, even interview that. He's not in real estate, but he's the lead trainer for Tony Robbins' Life and Wealth Mastery. So he does all the events in Fiji, Marco Island. And it's like all of a sudden these type of level of people are coming into my sphere, but I wouldn't have been in that circle if I wouldn't have invested in these programs to get into proximity with a higher level individual. And we're going to see that opportunity grow over the next 5 to 10 years as information age grows, as infopreneurship grows. So that would be the other thing that I would have done quicker. Those are about four or five steps for you.
But Colton, that's awesome. And again, applied knowledge for everybody who's watching or listening to this. And that's the point. Whether you're new or seasoned, we should all look at our businesses and try to apply a lot of this information, because these are nuggets, everybody. So write that down, pause it, rewind it, reach out to Colton. Again, I'm going to have all his contact info. So hopefully I'm not blowing up your DM or anything like that, Colton, but this is just killer information. I want to shift gears on this particular, interview right now and go to the tricky part of this series. And it's the challenge question. So I always lead into it with every Titan. Like, we all have challenges in our life. No one's exempt, whether it's in the past, now we're dealing with it, or in the future, we just don't know yet. Everybody has struggle. Everyone has hardship. Now, whether it's personal hardship and struggle or professional hardship and struggle, we all deal with it. I'm a big believer of, it's not so much what happens, and I'm not downplaying pain or sorrow, but what we learn from it, how we respond to it, and what we can share with others. So Colton, if you're comfortable sharing a challenge or anything, what's that look like for you? What you overcame? What's your challenge? That sort of thing.
I mean, it's funny. I heard this funny thing on TikTok the other day that was, the mom asked the gal, hey, if you had a shot for every mistake you made in your life, a shot of alcohol for every mistake you made in your life, would you be buzzed? Would you be drunk, or would you be wasted? And she looked at the screen and she said, Mom, I'd be fucking dead. Right. So if we look at the challenges, like if I got a shot for everyone, I'd be fucking dead. In fact, truthfully, I'm amazed and surprised and grateful that I'm alive at this far in my life.
Okay.
Because I have friends that aren't. I have friends that aren't alive anymore. Buddha said, pain is guaranteed, suffering is the choice. And one of the reasons why I kept falling into these holes is because I chose to suffer, right? I chose to, whatever reason, and that's a whole other podcast in itself. And that, in fact, the reason why I run the mastermind the way I do is so that I can help people release that suffering and go to that space of bliss. It's not to say you're not going to have challenges. In fact, when I have a one-on-one call with my mastermind partners, I say, hey, you're going to have a plan for the next 12 months. I want you to be prepared for that plan to get fucked up, because it's going to happen. And it's not the plan that's important. It's the planning that you go through, so that when it does get fucked up, you're like, all right, here's the opportunity. Right. Be prepared for it. Okay. So I've had several things. I remember, weed was a big problem for me to the fact that, like, I would smoke joints on the drive to go meet with a client, right? Like, I'm smoking weed. But one of the biggest ones I remember, is I was going to go on a spiritual experience with a couple of my buddies up in my cabin with, and I, for some reason, I found a specific formula. I thought the formula for a spiritual experience involved smoking a big joint first, eating 4 grams of mushrooms second, and drinking a pint of orange juice third. I thought that was the recipe for a spiritual journey, right? For some reason. And turns out it was an incredible experience that I don't ever want to repeat.
You go.
As I went through this experience, about a couple hours in, one of the guys that was there started just freaking out. He went to a space where he thought he was dying. And then he actually thought our other friend was dead. Okay. So, and may I remind you that he got to where we were at the cabin by riding a road bike for 26 miles in the middle of August. And so he's already dehydrated to get up there. And as he starts to freak out, he begins hiking out of the mountains where my cabin is. And as he begins to hike out of the mountains, I remember walking down this trail and I saw, like, these trees on the side of the road and then this beautiful mountain inside of me. And my mind just said, don't walk towards the light. I was like, fuck. So I turned around. Started walking the other way. And I was like, fuck, I see the light still. No matter which way I'm walking, it's the same view, right? So finally we get down to this dirt road, and the guy signals this car and starts talking, and then the sheriff says to him, the sheriff says to him, "You can't get in my car, but I will definitely call in paramedics and life flight for your dead friend." So now all
Wow.
of a sudden, my
Oh man.
friend or this guy is with this, signals a fucking car. They call in fucking the sheriff. They call in life flight. I'm in handcuffs. We're all then taken to the ER.
Huh.
Long story short, I got to show up in front of a judge.
Hmm.
And it just was like, dude, what in the fuck are you doing right
That's
now? And
crazy.
it's,
Yeah.
what's really crazy today, Greg, is a lot of people are using psilocybin, ayahuasca, peyote. Like, it's a very common thing.
Sure.
And I think it can be I think it in the right setting can be powerful, but this is how I was doing my life on a regular basis.
Okay.
And it was the beginning of a wake up call for me to realize, listen, like, you need to start to get your shit together.
Okay.
And then probably about 2 years later is when it really hit me, because I still didn't wake up at this point. It was the beginning.
Oh, okay.
It was February. I remember February. I found out a good friend of mine was diagnosed with stomach cancer. So he's 39 years old. He's a couple million a year. He's got the Ferrari, the Porsche, sick house. Everything's awesome, right? And then by July 10th, he went from 190 something pounds to 95 pounds, and he passed away. And it just hit me like a ton of bricks. It's like, dude, you're going to die one day. Between now and then, what do you want to do before you die?
Wow.
First thing for me was like, I wanted to get healthy. And so that was the start of my shift. And that was only 2016 that I really made this shift. Like, money was not a problem, Greg. Success financially was not a problem.
Right.
But being fulfilled and making a difference and being able to wake up addicted to my life, not having to drug myself out every day, it was in that moment when I could start to face my fears, when I could start to face the pains that I was avoiding. Because here's what happened. It's a shame factor.
Okay.
People will end up, and this is universal. People have this identity of shame that they believe they're not good enough. That's the difference between guilt and shame. Guilt is I did a bad thing. Shame is I am a bad thing. And so we're creating this identity of I'm not. And so as we get older, we have especially with social media, we have this belief of what we should be as a perception to society, whether it's our parents, our church, our followers, our community. And so we tend to adapt and become pleasers to create that. And to deal with the pain, we find the addiction. Here's the 1 of 4 ways people deal with the shame. A, they hurt someone else physically, clear to the point of murder. We see that very common in our society today. Mass shootings, murder, it's everywhere. The other way is they hurt themselves to the point of suicide. Look at our suicide rate today. It's going through the roof. The third way that we deal with it, and it's very common in women, is we withdraw. We just get away from everyone and we just be by ourselves. And then the fourth way is we become actually addicted to some sort of vice. It's food, it's drugs, it's alcohol, it's prescriptions, it's even working out or the appeal. Like Jackie Jordan Kersey is a prime example. She was the fastest woman in the world, dead in her 40s by a heart attack. And she was supposedly healthy, right? It's because we become addicted to some certain thing with the identity of our ego to be the certain perception. So for me, when I could actually break that and realize I don't need to be, just like you asked that question earlier, what's my why? It's because I fucking can. Because I choose to. And I don't fucking care what anyone thinks about why or how or doing it the right way. It's because I fucking can. And I'm going to do it.
I mean, Colton, that to me, I mean, thanks for opening up. It's not easy to do to air stuff out in front of everybody, but obviously it's not something that you shy away from, which I can feel that. And I love it because there's so many people out there that are dealing with so many different issues and things, challenges that they're overcoming or dealing with right now. And they're listening or watching a professional like you. And they're saying, wow, look at everything that Colton's been through and all the challenges and struggles and everything that he's accomplished in his life to now, and you didn't let it stop you, man. I mean, you had that epiphany, you had that thought process with your friend dying so young and, having everything there. And I think that if we could all take a look at ourselves and look at that and say, let's not wait for something really bad to happen to us, to a friend or a family member. Let's literally look at our life and see and become the best version of ourselves and whatever that may be, and have that balance of life and family, religion, health, and finance, the whole nine. But, taking that more proactive instead of reactive thought process, because so many of us are just reactive. You know, we go through our lives and it's like, oh, okay, I'm unhealthy. The doctor says I have to take pills for my cholesterol. It's like, why don't you just work out more? Why don't you just stop eating cheeseburgers, 10 times a week?
Why don't you start drinking? I mean, my thing is full of, today is apple, kale, ginger, lemon. It's celery juice. It's salt water. It's
right.
You know what I mean? It's putting those things into your vehicle, because here's the other thing, just like we talked about thoughts.
Yeah.
I'm not my body. Like this hand is not my fucking hand, Greg. It's a vehicle that the awareness, my essence, is inside of traveling on this physical experience.
Wow.
So I want to travel on this experience for quite a bit. Like, I like it here. I love my kids. I love my family. I love doing this. Yeah. So let's take care of the gifts that I've been given, and then let's give those gifts to other folks, to other people.
I love it, Colton. Hey, and I'm glad that you're giving everything you're giving to the audience and myself. This is an amazing conversation. I love it. So I want to shift gears to a slightly softer question, because that one can get a little touchy for some people, but I love what you said. I think it was brilliant and beautiful that you shared that. But this is actually one of my favorite questions that I ask every Titan that comes out on this particular show. And it's the travel back in time question. Now, this question isn't designed for you to say, well, if I could go back in time, I would change this and I would stop myself from doing something or the other. It's more of, if you could go back in your mind and your thought process, right? Because no one has a time machine like Doc Brown and Back to the Future. But if we look at it, except for Doc Brown, but if we look at it, what would you say to your younger self? What piece of advice would you give at any age? If it was a year ago, or if it was, 25 years ago, what would you say?
This is a great question. I actually do this all the time. So there's a great book. I think it's called Mind Power for the 21st Century. I can't remember the name. John Kehoe, I think, is the author. Amazing book. I was in one of my masterminds I was in. He was one of the guests, and just blew my mind with the idea of quantum reality, which I truly believe is how we're living. It's not 1 + 1 = 2. It's 1 + 1 = 8, right? Like, we don't fucking know how it happens. Like, I don't know how this thing streaming through the internet thing works, but it's working. You know what I mean?
Right.
And even like the smartest person on the planet can try to fucking explain it. They don't really fucking know how it's working. You know what
it's
I mean?
What they're told by someone else who they kind of know.
Exactly. Right. So we look at this in this idea of quantum reality. My belief is that the future, the present, and the past are all happening simultaneously. And it's hard to wrap mind around that if there's a new concept to you. So one of the things I discovered actually that I work on with my mastermind partners is to heal your past in this present moment by going back through breath work and visualization and seeing a moment in time where you felt a painful experience. And you can't change that painful experience, but you can be there as your present self, giving love and support and encouragement and energy to that past self. Okay. Yeah. So in a nutshell, for me, is I would just tell my past self, I love you, I'm here for you, and everything turns out okay. Just be present and patient. Wow, and if that concept is true, that I'm doing this to my past self, guess what's happening in my challenges of this moment, when I have one in this moment? My future self is doing that to me as well. I actually believe where a lot of our epiphanies come from, or ideas, actually come from our future self, whispering it to us.
That's great, Colton. I never really thought of it that way or looked at it that way, but I would agree. We have so many aha moments or epiphanies, as you said, and thought processes. And again, it's a beautiful thought to kind of go through and say, hey, maybe that is my future self. We had a Titan on the episode on this particular series out of New York, and very similar thought process to what you had just said. And it was really interesting because he would go to his younger self and he'd say, hey, you know what? I'd pull up in a stretch car and that sort of thing. And I'd look at my younger self full of pimples, all that stuff. And he'd see my suits and the success. And he said, just keep doing what you're doing. You're going to be all right. Just keep, and it's one of those things where you look at it and you'd say that to your younger self, but so many of us need to say that to ourselves today, right? Yeah. Keep doing what you're doing. It's going to be all right. I mean, I think that's beautiful advice. I mean, if you're putting the time in, you're doing the work, your mindset's right, surround yourself with great people, keep doing it. It's going to be all right. And again, that's not just for your younger self. That's for everybody who's watching or listening to this right now, myself included.
Yeah.
That's why I love that question. I think it's great. It's
Have you seen that new movie with about Mr. Rogers with It's a Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood?
I haven't, with Tom Hanks. I haven't yet.
Yeah,
It's on
so
the
there's
list.
this cool part in it. I saw it, and there's this cool part in it where talking about how do we become better parents. In fact, he was interviewed on Oprah years and years ago talking about how to become a better parent. And he says, I think the way we become better parents is remember what it was like when we were children. And so doing these actual exercises of remembering, listen, like things were challenging as children. Like you're not sure what these emotions are, how to process everything. Like I look at my 6-year-old, she's 7 now, you know, I got divorced about a year and a half ago. Like I can't even imagine what she was going through. And then I started thinking about, holy shit, remember when you spilled red punch on the carpet? Remember when this happened? And then it's like when you can revisit those past experiences and perceive them in a light of support and love, that heals a piece in you. Wow. And as you do that, you show up better for your children. You show up better for the relationships, the people that are important in your life. I think it's probably one of the most powerful activities that a human can do is to reshape their past. Because here's the truth.
Yeah.
I can't change the past. You and I both know that. There's 3 ways that we create our future. One is we have a vision of the future. We hold on to it, and we mix it with an emotion of wonder and awe and gratitude. Second way we do that is we do something fucking different right now, a new action, something we're not used to, because that creates a new pattern and a new history for us. But the third way is because our history really does perpetuate our future, is we go back into the past and we see a specific experience and we re-perceive that experience in a different way. Wow. In fact, science today shows that 50% of our memories are actually wrong. We viewed it differently than it actually happened. So fuck, just go back in time and view it differently and make it up, but make it up in a way that feels full of love and joy and positive emotion. And all of a sudden, that's what starts to create every day in your life.
Colton, these are huge takeaways, man. This is fantastic. I love this dialogue.
Greg. How many people are waking up, and I know the statistics about 80% today, wake up with their cell phone in their hand. They turn their email, their social media, their stuff, right?
First thing.
Right. So, but guess what? They tend to have more stress in their life. In fact, today, statistically, about 70% of Americans are obese. And here's what's crazy. 67% of them say they're eating healthy. Someone's fucking lying to themselves, okay? Right. But those are the numbers. But why? It's because that's what they wake up and they focus on. So imagine this. In the last 24 hours, Greg, did something make you smile or laugh?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so what if the first thing you get up is you remember 3 things in the previous 24 hours that made you smile or laugh? And then you replayed that in your head. Now, all of a sudden, that's what you're training your brain and your mind and your perception to perceive throughout your day.
That's brilliant. I mean, but it's super simple, Colton, but if you look at it, it's absolutely brilliant. And that's a part of the mind training and proper thought process. Most people are not wired this way. Our culture and society is wired the opposite in a lot of instances. Sure. So this is work. This is being surrounded by other people. You weren't born with that thought process. You just spit out. You had people or an influence or something, or it just popped into your head as you were evolving as a person, intellectually, spiritually, health-wise. And this is how we do it. But I think that if more of us were just open to be more sponge-like and just learn from great people such as yourself and just listen, right? We're always so busy and self-involved in our own worlds, and we want to share our stories. Just listen to others and take advantage of that opportunity, and you can learn from so many people. I mean, it's a beautiful thing. Everything you're saying, Colton, is just amazing.
You know what's crazy about that is the more I started listening to others and absorbing from them is the moment more people started asking me my story, right? Like there's that stage where we want to tell our story. That's narcissistic.
Sure.
I tell my story because I'm asked about it.
Yes.
On a regular basis. And we're here to listen. And great salespeople, great leaders, they're great listeners. They ask great questions, not only to others, but to themselves. And they shut up and fucking listen to the answers. They stop trying to spit out the solutions all the time.
I think it's brilliant. Colton, this is amazing. I can keep talking to you all day long. I know you got a strict schedule, so I want to keep to it. But so I want to shift gears to the next question. And this one is actually another crowd pleaser for everybody. And we're just got 2 left. So this one is the feeding of the mind question. So when it comes down to it, a lot of the viewers, subscribers, whether they're watching,
dude, I'm okay for a minute, like 10 extra minutes if you need. So
okay, cool. All right.
Totally
this is great. Everybody appreciates this. Colton is a super busy guy. So I just really want to make sure we soak all this up. So this one is the feeding the mind portion. So I lead into it because everybody wants to know how the Titans are feeding their minds, how they're really growing and expanding. And you've said so many beautiful things already, but if we could look at it this way, books you're reading or have read, which you already mentioned one, podcasts you're listening to, influencers, coaches, or above and beyond that, how are you feeding your mind, Colton?
First of all, before I feed my mind, I feed my soul. Okay. And I connect with my soul. And unfortunately, a lot of us, we cut that lifeline off through our identity and our ego.
Sure.
So that's my first thing is I make sure I light my shit up from the inside out. Okay. Second thing is I become aware. A really cool book is called The Net and the Butterfly. I can't remember who the author is off the top of my head. The Net and the Butterfly. Okay. And in that book, it talks about the focused mind and the meandering mind or the wandering mind. And the idea is here's where I got stuck is I became almost addicted to personal growth, personal development. Okay. That become like, I just was doing the work all the time. And a really great friend of mine, she said to me, and she's an amazing, amazing person, psychotherapist, ran an amazing rehab company for 30 years, helping women with schizophrenia and addictions, right? Like just crazy, crazy cool gal. She said to me, Colton, I don't know anyone that has worked on themselves as much as you. Go to the meandering mind and let the work do the work. Okay, so I obviously read books. I journal write. In fact, one of my things that I have, I created this. It's called the, see if I can open it up. It's called the I Love My Life Journal. Okay,
that's great.
So there's activity that I do every single morning to prime myself and declarations and to do my smart day. So I'm clearing my outcomes for the day. So I do that, but then I consciously schedule time for me to do nothing. Okay. Time for things to just show up in my life. Whether that's, hey, I'm going to just go sit at the coffee shop and see what happens and just start talking with people, or I'm going to schedule time to just go to like yin yoga, right? Like that's time for me to just like let free and to unwind, or I'll go on a walk by myself, or I'll just like, especially if I get a little bit overwhelmed, if that ever happens, I will literally cancel my next appointment. I don't care what it is. Right. I'll just leave my phone and I'll go do something. So I give myself more time to just let the work do the work, if that makes sense. It does. And it's been really, really powerful because our unconscious mind, which is the nervous system, it's not the brain, it's the entire body, is set up to be a machine that whatever we program it to do, it's going to go and create it. And if we are always in that focused mind, which is important to be there, but if we're always there, it's like you remember those little race cars that like you would twist the fingers like wing, and it would zoom across the floor, right? For sure. But if you twisted it too far, that spring in there would break. We're the same way. If we twist, if we're always there, we're cranking ourselves up, we're gonna snap. And you're seeing it happen today. Like here's an example. We look at real estate titans. You go to a Keller Williams family reunion. They did one in New Orleans last year. Or you show up at a mega camp in Austin, or you go to a Mike Ferry event, production retreat. After the event, where's everyone at? Majority of people are getting slammed. They're getting hammered. They're getting wasted. And I know because I've been there. I fucking been to those events. Okay. Yeah. And that's because we're getting us so wound up in this achiever style that we're not letting ourselves just have some freaking freedom to just be and to just exist. And it's crazy what happens when you do that. Shit comes together when you put that in your life.
Well, I love the way that you mentioned that, Colton, because you started with, feeding your soul. And I think having that portion of balance is crucial. You're feeding your soul, but then you're educating your mind, and obviously feeding it with different audio, video, text formats, journaling. I think that all that's perfect. Having those conversations and traveling around. I mean, there's so many different ways to consume it. And then the marketplaces and your team and through all that, there's so much. But the fact that you take the time, you schedule that time for you, and your boundaries. So as you said, when that thing is just about to snap, and you just let off it. You let off it. You understand what it takes, and then you can wind that thing right back up and let it launch again.
Yeah. And there's times when you do need to wind it up, where you want to go all in and focus on it. Right. And it's just ebb and flow of it. A great book to read is a guy named Keith Cunningham wrote a book, The Road Less Stupid. And it's all about like when you schedule that time away, make sure that you go in with a handful of questions that you're asking yourself too. And be constantly asking yourself newer and different questions. And when you do that, you might not get any solutions from it. You might not get anything from it.
Sure.
But just take the data and then pick out what sticks out for you. But if you don't schedule that time to do that, which most people, especially level 3 agents we talked about, doing that $150K a year,
right?
They started making more money than they're used to growing up. Now all of a sudden they spent that money on shit, liabilities, taking money out of their pocket, and they're just trying to answer doors and calls and do things just to pay the bills and to keep the facade. I'm successful.
Right.
And behind the scenes, they're fucking bleeding, man. Like they are miserable. They're stressed. Their sex sucks with their wife. They're freaking overweight. They're what, you know what I mean? That's the reality of it. So you gotta create that space to do that. Here's another thing I would recommend too.
Yeah.
For the men and the women out there, men, go study the core of masculine energy because it's so fucking confusing in our world today, especially in the modern society. And women, go study the core of the feminine energy. Men, you're here, and the masculine is purposeful. Be direct, be to the point, be decisive. Don't be an emotional little bitch.
Right.
Women, you are a bit of a chaotic emotional storm, and that's okay. Embrace that. You're here. You're the creative. In fact, I believe God's a woman, man. I believe God is the feminine energy because it's a space of creation.
Sure.
But learn how to use your core energy as an advantage in your life. And all of a sudden, the relationships around you will take off to another level. There'll be more respect in your life. There'll be more fulfillment in your core. You'll have way hotter fucking sex with your lovers. Right. You'll have more help. Like, it's ridiculous. And so I think we're really confusing society today because we don't know on what core feminine and core masculine is. And it's becoming a challenge for men and women today.
Yeah, I mean, but you hit that really well because everybody has strengths and weaknesses coming down to it, and we have to play to our strengths, understand our weaknesses, and go for it, and live that full life that comes down. So, I mean, all that stuff is really great, Colton. And I'm going to have a list as always in the comments down below so everybody can feed your mind. Very similar to this man is, or again, as always, reach out to Colton for sure. But was there any other books or podcasts or anything, Colton? I didn't want to cut you short.
Jeez Louise. I would pay attention to Ed Milet. What he's doing is really cool. I think he's really genuine with what he's doing.
Okay.
I think that's who I'm really most focused on. But a lot of what I do, and Luke Wren, I'd really pay attention close to Luke Wren right now. He's a cool guy. Perfect.
Awesome. So again, I'll have links in the comments so everybody, you can feed your mind that same way. So Colton, I want to wrap this up with a final question. This has been chock full of just amazing takeaways, real truthful, honest answers. I feel like I'm hanging out with you, my friend. It's a great experience. I love this. And anybody who's around this guy, they're very lucky if they're face to face with him. There's no doubt. So this last question ends up being a quote or a mantra that sums you up as a man, as a professional. What's that look like for Colton Lindsay?
Ooh, man. I think there's probably two that stick out. One is make a difference. And then two is presence and patience.
It's beautiful.
Make a difference in presence and patience.
Yeah, man. I mean, it sums you up perfectly to me. And again, everything that you've been stating and going through, and there's no doubt in my mind why you've had the success and the impact that you've had in the community thus far and continue to do so. It's been an honor, Colton, and again, to call you a friend, and you are an official real estate titan. So thanks so much, Colton. It's an honor, my friend. So
thank you, my friend.
Everybody out there, as always, thanks so much for your time and attention, your love and support. If you like what we're doing here for Real Estate Titans, please don't forget to like our Facebook page, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and have a listen on iTunes, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. Live every Tuesday and Friday afternoon, a different Titan, a different location. We'll catch everybody on the next live episode of Real Estate Titans. Take care.